in this political climate, I think it is important for you to know where your favorite YouTubers, and maybe I'm not one of them, but let's subscribe first. And you need to know where I stand, where other people stand. So it's important that I take this political compass test. So let's start off here. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve the interest of humanity over the interest of transnational corporations. Well, frankly, I believe that humanity is better than transnational corporations, but that's kind of a misleading question. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Of course, I would strongly agree with this. No one chooses the country of their birth, so it is foolish to be proud of it. Well, no, because just because you're not born with the choice of it doesn't mean you can't be proud of it. If you're proud to be the son of the president, that's not, it doesn't, like, what? Who cares? What, you were gifted it? Yes, okay, fine. Yes, I'm proud to be an American. What do you want? Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Well, what race are you talking about? It's a very convoluted thing. Now, let's say you're white. Do you think you have superior qualities over other races? Well, what does that even mean? I would presume that racial qualities are like eyes and, hair color, skin color. Frankly, I, as an Hispanic, think that Hispanics have certain advantages in terms of attractiveness, and therefore, I guess, in my opinion, would have superior qualities. But again, that's a very weird question. And, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, obviously not. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Strongly agree, because international law, a lot of the time, does not benefit our interest. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Not really, and I would tell you this why. Well, anybody with a brain will know that. What a stupid question. Who sees entertainment and then gets informed off of it instead of, perceiving it as fake news or whatever? I don't know. At least I don't have that issue, and that's a stupid question. I don't like the phrasing so far. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality, and I personally would say no. Why? Well, because I think I would have more in common with an American that is rich or poor than I would have with a Belgian who's upper middle class like I am. Debatably, you could say maybe, how can you argue this? Of course, people in your own nation are going to be more similar to you. If I had somebody from, let's say, Russia that was at the same level of wealth that my family's at, I would not have that much in common with them. I would have much more in common with anybody within the United States, probably. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I do believe so, because, unemployment is kind of a misleading figure. In fact, if you were to look at the communists in Russia and China, while they may have had full employment as they do perhaps in North Korea, obviously the circumstances around their 0% unemployment is completely off. And, it's a lot of forced labor and misallocation of resources that comes from a centrally planned economy, as well as, I think, inflation, if it were to be controlled by the government, which it is by de facto, because we are printing money by fiat. I believe that, of course, the government needs to make sure that inflation isn't exceedant or deflation isn't too high, because that would chip into the savings of the American people, and inflation serves as a sort of a tax. So I think it is a lot more important the more you think about it. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Look, it's in the best interest of most companies that want to stay in business for a long time to make sure that the environment they are extracting resources from lasts them so that they can profit more. As an example, if you're cutting down trees for paper as a company, it is in your best interest to plant trees after you cut down the old ones, so that you can come back later on and cut those trees again and profit off of the paper sales. So again, in general, these companies are going to do that. But yes, there are certain cases where the companies will say, well, we're working in a temporary basis, so who cares if we ruin the environment in Swahili, Africa, or Kenya, or whatever, which is their problem anyway. But in general, yes, we do need some regulations. Not as much as what we have, but we do need some. And then we have the quote here, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And that's a fundamentally good idea. No, because I think that just because you only need so much doesn't mean you're entitled to only that. Okay, so if I only need $3,000 to live off of, I don't think that just because I need that much, I should only take that much. I should take as much as I want. Okay, so if I can produce $10,000 but only need $3K, I should be able to keep as much of the $10K as possible. Not that the government says, well, since you only need this, we will take the rest. Of course not. Completely idiotic, complete Marxian crap. The freer the market, the freer the people. In particular, I do agree with this because even if you're in a dictatorial regime, if you have a free market, you have more variety in what you're picking with. So, obviously, it is a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled in a branded consumer product. No, because water's not a problem. I've not heard of anybody who cannot afford water. That's just a stupid thing, and in fact, by having the government not put their hands on the water supply so much, you get it so cheaply by bottle or through tap or whatever. And sure, you have some government intervention as to who owns reservoirs or whatever, but in general, the way we have it now is very good. So yes, it is a branded consumer product, and no, it's not a problem. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. No. You should be able to own your own property to sell it or whatever. That doesn't make any sense to me, so I strongly disagree with that notion. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Well, that's stupid. How do you make your money to begin with? Now, if you were to look at George Soros or a bunch of international bankers, the way they make their money is by giving leverage to a company that is under leveraged in their currency and then flip it once the currency becomes strong again, which happened in Britain in the last several decades because of a switch in monetary policy. You know, you can see the EU have its own euro, and then you could have the pound sterling, and when you're transitioning between the two currencies, there can be instability, and you would need people to invest in your economy to supplant that, and that's clearly what some people like Soros did. And sure, he did make exponentially more money, but it was from risk. So people that do such a thing are risking a lot. So I strongly disagree with this. It is a very naive notion to believe this. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yes, politically and by de facto, perhaps protectionism in a perfect society, in an ideal society, would never be necessary in trade. But when you have places that are cheating, like China, or places that are dodgy in their trade, like Mexico perhaps, or Brazil, or Argentina, or Venezuela especially, you do need some sort of a tariff or some sort of some sort of big stick to threaten people with, you know. Protectionism as a concept in general is a toxic thing, but in particular with China, we need to exercise it. So I agree. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Yes, because you are supposed to be profiting and then giving the profit to the people that allow you to do that profit by investing money into your company to buy capital or whatever you need to do. So yes. And sure, okay, well, a company should be able to provide a living wage. Well, you're consenting to work there, aren't you? So, whatever. The rich are too highly taxed. I do believe, yes, looking at the marginal rates and not just the nominal rates, maybe effective tax is too low. But in general, I think, and Trump did cut the taxes for the rich, but it's still 37% of your money being taken away by the federal government, let alone the state government. So I just frankly think that that's way too much of your money. I just have a hard time thinking of losing almost 40% of my money in just income taxes at the federal level alone. It is insane to me. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of health care. Yes, of course. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Maybe, But, if a business does mislead the public, I do believe that the public would just buy something else, depending on the scale of such a thing, to the point where that company would go broke anyway, so it would make the government regulations redundant. But at the same time, if it's something where perhaps it's like a fake cancer pill, hypothetically, and it says it'll cure your cancer for $1,000 a pill and you need to take 10, and the government finds out that no, it won't work, but you won't be able to tell in a long time, I guess in a hypothetical, you would need government regulation. So I think I would lightly agree with this. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. No, because it's a complete fallacy. And if you really think about this in a deep way, I've seen videos from the academic agent and other kind of libertarian type of economists and economicists that point out that virtually all monopolies are propped up by government regulation. Okay, like Standard Oil, you're talking about people that use regulation to snuff out the smaller competition. So it's kind of a fallacy to say that the free market makes monopolies when it's really a crony capitalist structure that allows people to exploit certain loopholes in the laws or circumvent regulatory structures because they're so big and the scale is so large. So again, I would say that I strongly disagree, because the monopoly thing is a government construction, not a free market thing. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I strongly agree. I think abortion in any case is murder, as far as I can tell. Even if it's an incest rape or threatening the woman's life, going out of your way to kill the baby is immoral. And sure, well, what if the woman dies? Well, then she dies. Well, that's it. So you don't, at least in my opinion, you don't murder an unborn baby for the sake of maybe your wife dying. Okay, morally, I get it in a utilitarian sense, but I'm not an atheist, so I cannot resort to such low monkey brain type of rationale. All authority should be questioned. I think so, because questioned as in thinking about it, as in, why should I listen to my father? Why should I listen to this cop? Why should I listen to this lawyer? Why should I listen to this judge? Now, it doesn't mean that you need to circumvent their authority, but it means I'm asking why I should believe in it. So why should I believe in God? Well, He's an authority. Well, I question the authority. Well, He created you and He can destroy you, and therefore I questioned the authority, which is God in this case. But at the same time, I still believe in God. So those aren't mutually exclusive, so I strongly agree. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. No, I think that's an uncivilized way of doing it. It's like saying, you shoot me in the foot, I'll shoot you in the foot back. No, that's immature. You shoot me in the foot, maybe I'll kill you, or I'll put you in jail. So, no civilized society is going to have a tit for tat and make it last, because that's just a never-ending cycle of violence. So, I disagree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. It depends on what theater, I think the Smithsonian's a very important thing within the government apparatus in terms of funding, and I think museums in general are kind of sacred and you shouldn't get rid of them. So I think they should be expected to prop them up to an extent, Now, could we look into certain things to cut, like, LGBT history, I'm completely cutting that, or, we need to fund, transvestite history or whatever? No. But certain, like a World War II memorial, I don't, okay, so what, it's not profitable, what do you want to do? Schools should not make school attendance compulsory. I would kind of disagree with this. I think it should be more of a localized issue, not a federal, but that's not what the question is. I think that it should be compulsory to an extent, because you're going to have a ton of punk, teenagers ditching school, and without a powerful father, or at least a mother, in that home, you are not going to be able to force that child there unless there's a law. So I think it should be compulsory, but again, I am wary of the government overstepping its bounds. So again, I would rather it be at a local level. All people have rights, but it's important for all of us that we have different sorts of people. Oh wait, hold on, let me read this again. All people have their rights, but it is better for us all. It is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. So it's basically saying that it's implying that the different types of races and ethnicities should stay away from each other. Perhaps you would have less ethnic tension and you would have less racial tension as well. So I would agree with this. Now, should you force anybody to segregate? No, but if people want to segregate by themselves and they will all consent to it, that's up to them. So I will agree. There should be no law segregating people, by the way, but I'm just saying, if you want to start your own little Amish Dutch, your Pennsylvania Dutch Amish or whatever community, that's up to you. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Yeah, sure, why not? I strongly agree with this. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. I agree. I strongly agree, because I think, you could have certain, some awkward stuff. You have some hormonal changes you might not want to tell your parents about, because that's weird. So, okay, the next question is, possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I don't like pot smoking, and I think it should, but I also think that the crime should mostly be on the dealer, but at the same time, what's to stop a pot smoker if it's legal to smoke pot? I don't know. Perhaps you should say, we'll put you in a rehab by force instead, but that's already a thing that's facilitated through the drug courts and the lower courts in localities. So I do agree that I disagree that it should not be a criminal offense. I want it to still be a criminal offense. I want pot smokers off the streets. I do not like them. The primary function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Sure, and I'll tell you why. Because, okay, well, it's for education. Well, yeah, but why do you need an education other than for a job mostly? So that's what you need. And if you basically guarantee that if you study this curriculum by the school system, you'll be able to find a normal job, then you're ensuring that you're getting rid of a lot of the funding for liberal arts and other stuff that won't get you paid. So I strongly agree with this. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. This is a tough one for me. This is kind of a eugenics question. I think that if you have a disability that is, I don't even know how to, I don't see retarded people having kids, but at the same time, let's say hypothetically that were to happen, or you have some other bad deformity, I do think that it is incumbent upon you to not have children if you have an inheritable disability that is severe. And I think perhaps subjecting people to, children, newborn children, to suffer as you did is wrong. And I also think that maybe the government shouldn't have a hand in it, but I'm going to lean towards it having it, because I think we should limit the amount of people that have disabilities, because that will drag down the whole society financially, etc. And I think if you do have some serious problem where you would if through inheritance you would give your child its disability, I think you should just adopt children if you can, and perhaps this would alleviate the foster system, etc. So I would agree, maybe not strongly agree yet. I haven't thought about it to the extent I would want to press strongly agree. Now we are on to the next question of the most important thing for children is to learn discipline. Yes. There are no savage or civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. That's just a liberal, naive way of thinking about things. I personally think that some cultures are savage, some are not. When you look at the culture of Africa, and I'm just vaguely speaking about, the cultures of thousands of years ago. You had cultures that were very bad. When you're talking about some European cultures of paganism, that's disgusting. You look at pederasty, you look at homosexuality in the Roman Empire, that's a bad thing about their culture. You look at, in Africa, I read about them, I don't know which tribes did this, but, albinos would be murdered for looking bad or because they're a demon or something stupid, according to what the black Africans thought at the time. Or perhaps cannibalism by any culture, that's bad. When you look into the culture in North Korea, that's bad. You look at the culture of Nazi Germany, that's bad. You look at the culture perhaps of like the Sentinel Island people, the Negroes, they're like aboriginals, I guess, racially speaking, and they kill anybody that comes into the island, and they're very primitive and weak. So I think this is going to be a strong disagree. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Strongly agree. You shouldn't have your hand out if you're not trying to seek food for yourself. When you are troubled, it is better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Okay. I don't know about this. I guess not. I think you should do your job first. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new society, new country. First-generation immigrant, if I understand this right, is the child of immigrants. So as an example, you could hypothetically be the son of Indian immigrants from the Red Dot, India, and would you be able to fully integrate? No, you wouldn't. Partially because your parents would have the culture of the other country, as well as you are visibly a minority. You don't look white. You don't, And then there's the other thing of, let's say you're a British immigrant. Oh, you're an Anglo-Wasp English immigrant, and your parents came here, and you were born in America as a WASP. You would integrate extremely well. I think that's about as close as you can get, perhaps, besides maybe Canada or Australia. And I think they would be able to almost completely integrate. But I think in general, if you're a non-Anglo, then I don't know. I guess I disagree. Well, no, I agree. Yeah. What is good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. What is always... corporations by necessity need to profit. And to profit, they need to satisfy the wishes of their consumers. And in order for consumers to spend money in a product from a corporation, they have to be satisfied by it, right? So, for what is successful for corporations will be good for us because we are the ones that are supporting the corporations in the first place. So it's a reciprocal type of thing, and basically whatever the corporation does is kind of chasing the ideals of whatever the customer wants, or at the very least abides by. So I agree, but not strongly. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I disagree with this one. I think C-SPAN is relatively non-biased, and just to have an archive that is completely safe of, congressional hearings, etc., that's a good thing. So I think we should fund some of them. Perhaps PBS having gay stuff and they're taking government money. Yeah, maybe not, but we still have Arthur on there, so right? I don't know. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. I would strongly agree. I'm against the Patriot Act in a lot of ways. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay the progress of a democratic political system. Well, that is an advantage that it... Well, no. Well, I don't know. I slightly disagree because that's a stupid premise, number one. And then number two, I think there is something good about having democratic debate instead of a one-party solution where you just skip past that. Although the electronic age makes it official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. the electronic age. No, because eventually it'll encroach on your civil liberties and it'll get more petty and more obtuse. So, like, for example, 15 years ago, they could have used Google for how, if you look up how to build a pipe bomb, how to kill Christians or something, okay, well, they would flag you for this. But if you say, but nowadays, or let's say in 10 years, where you say, why are Muslims terrorists? Well, then that would flag you as a white nationalist, or, hypothetically. So there's a constant moving goal of the goalpost with these organizations that will look for whatever they can as for leads of whatever they deem as bad in that era. So if that would include normal stuff that is, stuff that is normal now in the future, then I would strongly disagree with that sentiment that only the wrongdoers need to be worried, because the definition of the wrongdoers will progressively change over time. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. I strongly agree, and it's completely constitutional. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and below to be demanded, of course, commanded. Anything other than that would be some vague sense of anarchy, which is not okay. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. In the subjective sense, yes, abstract art is overrated. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I mean, to an extent, but also I would rather have a bigger population of reformed felons than just felons rotting in jail, because that would even cost us more, I believe. So I think I don't really know. But then punishment, you need to make sure you're punished, and then maybe you'll become a better person, not the other way around. So I guess I'm pretty torn, so I'll go for agree. It is a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals. Yes, there's some people that are just too sick in the head. You look at Charles Manson, who didn't change his ways, I think. Richard Ramirez didn't change his ways. Jeffrey Dahmer, from what I know. I don't know, stuff like that. There's a lot of serial killers and cult leaders that are so wrapped up in their own crap that they will not know what is right or wrong. The business person and the manufacturer are the more important than the writer and the artist. Well, yeah, because if you only have a writer and an artist alone, you're not going to be able to... Hold on. I don't get it. Is this supposed to be the liberal arts versus the actual jobs, or... I don't get the dichotomy here. The premise is weird to me. I agree that that industry is more important than liberal stuff, which is like writing, artistry, pictures, whatever, poems. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I strongly agree. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. That's not for me to decide. I'm an American. I don't care what happens in Africa, to the extent that it doesn't affect us, probably, and as well as, again, if the Kenyans or the South Africans or whatever third world backwater you want to talk about, if you're talking about them, if you have people willing to take jobs that may or may not hurt the environment, that's up to them. And if some uppity white liberal wants to say, well, you're ruining the flora and fauna, Tyrone doesn't care, okay, Mohammed doesn't care, they want their job, okay, and that's more important. These idiots are the same ones that want to ban sweatshops, or they want to ban child labor, when it's those same kids that are working in the mines and are making clothes in a sweatshop that want to keep their job so that they don't starve to death. So, no, they're definitely not doing that, because I think it's ethical by the premise of the workers wanting to do it, number one, and number two, the alternative is much worse. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity, sure. Astrology accurately explains many things. No, that's such a stupid... That's like, you're just going to delve into more non-godly things if you go through the astrology pipeline. So I disagree. These people talking about, oh, you're a Zoros, or you're a Tauros, or you're a Aquinas, or what are these signs called? Virgo? Yeah? Cancer? Who cares? You cannot be moral without being religious. I strongly agree, because my morality is derived from the Bible, and if you're deriving your morality from the Book of Satan, or you're talking about the, English common law, I don't know what, at that point it's basically might is right, and, atheism in a non-religious sense, a secular society, just probably cannot work, Being completely objective, I believe morality is objective, and it's from the Bible, and the higher authority is our God. So charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. So I think that premise is supposed to be not Social Security as the administration, but charity is in the private sector, and Social Security being the government. And I think that in general the government would do better, because you need mass scale to help people, whereas if you're going by a case-by-case basis, the private sector will not be able to pick up the absolute scale of things. I just can't fathom saying, oh, these Walmart's going to do a food bank. Maybe not. I don't see them doing this. I don't know. I don't see a country that does not have a welfare state. So I'm just going to go with the safe option and say that charity is not better. In terms of have only charity or have only welfare, I'm going to take the only welfare if I were the president. Some people are naturally unlucky. What does that even mean? Unlucky. I don't like the sentiment. I think that, okay, yeah, you're born Barron Trump and your dad is a billionaire and the president, okay, you're lucky, but you're born, hillbilly white trash in Hope, Arkansas, or around there. No, I mean, I get it, but you shouldn't be thinking that way. I don't like the mindset of, I was born without a dad, or I was born well off, so nah, I don't like that mentality, so I disagree. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Yeah, I mean, my child's school could be a private school for all you know, so I think that, yes, I would ideally want strong Christian values promoted in the schools that my kids would be in, but at the same time, should the government be secular, or should it be funding schools that have religion in it? Whatever. I mean, if the left is going to screw us anyways, we might as well fight back and make sure the academy is not so liberal. But who am I to say? Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. I would strongly agree. I don't think, out of wedlock, come on. It's, I don't know. I probably shouldn't talk about it, but yeah, you should wait until you're married, ideally, especially if you're a girl. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. People claim that, the foster system's overblown, the adoption thing is overblown, or it's overloaded, or whatever, okay? Meaning that there's too many kids without parents. I get this, but at the same time, would it be better to be raised by gay guys? Usually gays, okay? No, I wouldn't know, obviously, but perhaps I would rather be in a foster home than be raised by gays. And I also think that, if you're raised by two gay men, I feel like they would be predatory. I don't know. It just seems like common sense that, you adopt a 10-year-old boy and you're gay. I don't know. It just seems fishy. It seems like a pipeline to homosexuality. And, if I were to let gays adopt a kid, I would definitely not want the kids to act like his parents, so-called. So, I'd strongly disagree that gays should not be able to adopt. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Ideally, it should not. I think it's bad and corrosive for most people, but at the same time, it is constitutional to have it, I think. So, as long as it's constitutional, what am I to do? And should it be legal? What's the alternative? I mean, how are you going to ban this? I mean, come on, be realistic. Ideally, you wouldn't have it, but ideally, you wouldn't have alcohol and tobacco. But are you going to ban these things? Hell no. Of course not. So this is not a fairy tale. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. I have conflicting views about this. I don't think the state should be involved in your marital affairs or whatever, but at the same time, sodomy is bad. Gay stuff is bad. Consenting adults, what does that include? Furries and like transvestites? Yeah, I don't think so. I disagree, not strongly. I'm not completely sure. I have a libertarian bone or an inclination towards monarchy, in terms of making sure the state doesn't overextend its power. But again, if I'm straight, then what would I care? Okay, no one can feel naturally homosexual. I strongly agree. You're not born gay, and I guess you're not born straight by that fact. I mean, by that truth, I guess. I think you're frankly molded by the environment to such an extent as your orientation. It will be determined by how you're grown up, more or less. So, as an example, if you're raised with a single mother, with a creepy uncle, and you go to prison, what is going to happen to you? Are you going to be gay? Probably, yeah. Very likely, relatively speaking. Whereas, people that do say that they do feel normal, that you were born this way, you're just coping with the fact or the truth that you were not strongly supported by your father, and you were probably molested by an older man. And, gays don't reproduce, they recruit. That's a good quote that I learned a while ago. And I think that most of the people that say that they're born gay are just coping with the backlash from society that says, ew, you're gross, and you're a degenerate sodomite. And the other thing that, no, I'm not gay because my uncle molested me when I was 5. It's because I was born this way. No, you were not born that way. You have to confront your demons and say, you were abused at a young age, you were taken advantage of. But that does not mean that you're born this way and you're living in sin and you're doing wrong. So, yes, I strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. And if you do, that's a defect and you got to get over it as best as you can. And don't act on it. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I would generally agree, and by that I mean, at least with the girls, underage girls dressing in certain ways, being open, it's kind of gross. It's kind of gross. The thought, the culture, all that, bad. Boys talk about that type of stuff all the time, but they're men, so who cares? Yeah, so I do think it's gone too far, but the premise is kind of weird. So let's see where I stand. I predict I'm going to be in the blue. Last time I checked, I was a couple to the right and to the up. Okay, so I predict I'm going to be right around here, but we're going to see. And, oh, well, there you go. That's the political compass that I got. It is economically right-wing 2.38, and I am authoritarian 4.41. So that means I'm approximately 2 to the right economically, and I'm 4 up, meaning that I am an authoritarian, conservative right-winger. Okay, I'm right-wing on economics. I am authoritarian. That means I'm a conservative and I'm a right-winger. So this is a mix of capitalism with conservatism. I got capitalist fascism, fascist capitalist. My values, I don't know what this would be. I'm satisfied with the results. I think the blue quadrant is based. You have to be right-wing on economics as well as right-wing on the social issues. And, if you look at what I've done in this video so far, you would notice that I have been consistent on the issues as far as I can tell. So, anyways, guys, stay out of the green quadrant no matter what. Stay out of the green. I would say that if you're within, this general circle right here, you're based within this L shape. A little bit of the red and a little bit of the purple can be tolerated, but again, the green is a no-go. The green zone is the Bernie zone. It is gay. Stay away. Stay away from the Stalin zone. Stay away from the Ayn Rand part or whatever that may be. Stay conservative, stay right-wing on everything, in my opinion. That's the way I want to stay. And thank you for watching and subscribe.